All right, and we're back with the all-powerful Matthew Tonge. He's fresh off a bit of hard rubbish work. You found anything you want to keep out of all that garbage, mate?
Nothing I want to keep. It's all going to the tip. Hopefully they come tomorrow. They've given me a window of 7 days. They said put your rubbish out on Sunday, and it'll be any time between Sunday and Sunday. And I thought, okay, it's a fair window you've given me, but I'll have it out there. So it could potentially be sitting there for a week. So apologies to my neighbours if there's a large lump of rubbish just left there.
Look, that's all right. One person's trash is another person's treasure.
Exactly.
And when it comes to the cleaning up theme, we've had a couple cleanups in the Tour de France as well. One in particular is the re-emergence, or he never really went away. Pogacar just completely cleaning up the course, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we're going to go through a recap of the last few days. We haven't met together for a while. Let you know what's going on, and then we'll talk about some of the big points to emerge, including one big point out of Western Australia. We really want to drive home.
That's a
So Matt,
special point. That's a special point.
take it away, Matt. Where are we sitting at the moment on the rest day?
So where are we sitting? Well, we're sitting in a very unique position because it looks like the general classification is all but wrapped up with the almighty Pogacar, but then
Whew.
you know that anything can happen in the tour. But if we look at the tour with all the subplots that are going on, it's very exciting. We've got a solid race for the green jersey. We've got some absolute carnage in the breakaways that has been happening, and yeah, it's actually shaping up to be a unique and exciting tour. One that we probably haven't seen for a while, having a clear favourite this early on, but with all those subplots going on, it's certainly been an exciting one to watch.
Yeah, look, it's a different tour from anything I've watched in recent memory. I mean, first off, getting off with those big crashes that threw haymakers throughout the entire predictions of what the race could be, and then all of a
Mm.
sudden we have this young buck Pogacar busting out of nowhere, looking like he might have the race wrapped up. I mean, you can't say it this early, but you kind of can because he's just blowing everyone away, isn't he?
And we've certainly seen riders control the tour. So I cast your mind back to Team Sky, now Team Ineos, with Chris Froome over those years, where
Mm.
they just dominated. And while it looked like he did have the tour wrapped up early on, he still had that competition that was that sense of competition that was there even into the later stages of week two. Whereas, I mean, Pog now, his biggest rival or pre-tour rival in Roglic is now abandoned, which is
Mm.
massive news in of itself. And he's got plenty of minutes up his sleeve on third, fourth, and fifth. The closest
Mm.
is, as you said, the special man out of Western Australia, who's only a minute or two behind. So, um, I mean, the great shining hope out of Western Australia is certainly there. But besides that, there's no real competition at the moment for Pog, is there?
It seems like the competition is in the other jerseys at this point, and of course, stage wins, right?
Certainly, certainly. So, I mean, the stage wins is always an exciting prospect at the tour, and there certainly is some brilliant competition in the
Mm.
other jerseys. So, I may as well just give a quick
Let's do
rundown
it.
of the
Go on.
three standings where we're at. So, if we just look at the maillot jaune, the yellow jersey, the general classification, we've got. Uh, I mean, it's a big lead. Pogacar's on 34 hours, 11 minutes and 10 seconds. So his closest rival is our man, Ben O'Connor. So we did bring him up in our pre-tour predictions as a top 10 candidate, and he's delivering in spadefuls. He's currently second, 2 minutes behind. And then from there, it really starts to open up. You've got Uran 5 minutes and 18 seconds back, Vingegaard 5 minutes and 32, and then to round out the top five, you've got Carapaz at 5:33 back. But as
Mm.
you said, the races are really ramping up in those other jerseys. So for the sprint, we've got Mark Cavendish at 168 points. And then our man, Bling, Michael Matthews,
Go
130
Bling.
points. He's in second.
Can't Bling.
Sonny Colbrelli sits at 121. Jasper Philipsen at 102. And then my man, he's not a sprinter, but geez, he can do it all as the world champion. Julien Alaphilippe
He's
on
still
99
there.
points. He rounds out the top 5. I don't think he's going to be in the top 5 to finish, but he's there for now. And then to round it out, the king of the mountain jersey, we've got Nairo Quintana on 50 points, Michael Woods on 42, Wout Poels on 39, the great white shining hope from Western Australia, Ben O'Connor on 24,
God, Ben.
and that rounds out the top 5. So, I mean, you look at those races within the tour, and it really is ramping up. So it's shaping up to be an exciting one.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you touched on the green jersey. Last time we talked about we were fresh off the carnage of the tour, those big crashes, days 1, 2, and 3. Shocking. And so we didn't know how the race would unfold. Probably the first big thing that happened after those crashes, those days, was the re-emergence of Cavendish. He's come
It's
out of
just been
nowhere.
incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. So I cast the listener's mind back to, it would have been this time last year, I think, maybe a little earlier. Cavendish actually finished a race, and in a post-race interview, he was in tears, and he said something along the lines of, "That could have been my last professional cycling race." People had written him off.
Yeah.
People had said he is done. Not only that, people thought he was embarrassing himself by sticking around professional cycling. They thought it was time to hang up the cleats.
Huh.
Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Cavendish has come out and he has won 2 stages. And he's currently in the lead of the green jersey. So I think he's anything but done at the moment.
No, and he's got a great team backing him as well. In one of the interviews after the big race win, he said it's the team. I mean, of course, it's you too, Mark, but it seems like he's in a team that is really making him the best version of himself possible.
And that is something that Quickstep does very well, and it's something that is widely acknowledged in the pro peloton. Is Quickstep just has this culture where, I mean, you've got the world champion Julien Alaphilippe performing as a lead-out man in some instances, or performing in the lead-out train for Mark Cavendish. So you've got riders, some of, and in his case, arguably the best rider in the world as world champion, however you want to look at that, performing and sacrificing themselves for someone else. So everyone seems to buy in, and the culture really is that one-in, all-in mentality.
Definitely. Yeah. Look, if you get Julien Alaphilippe doing the work for you, that's a pretty big statement on your potential, isn't it?
I mean, I'm a big Julien fanboy, but I think it's a big statement for him as well. So for a world champ to be prepared to ride for others, that's a testament to his character, I think.
Yes, Julien, Cavendish. There's some big names, but I'd want to talk about a name that's not as well known. It's just emerged, really. But geez, I'm looking forward to this name hanging out for a long time. We've got the amazing Western Australian Ben O'Connor, who in the matter of 24 hours went from outside the top 10 to second. Where's he pulled this from?
It was a seriously incredible ride. I would go as far as saying, in the history of Australians at the tour, it's one of the best rides we've seen. And I say that, and keep in mind that it doesn't have that context of going for, I guess, Port's time trial last year, or Cadell riding to victory. It doesn't have that weight on it. But in terms of just sheer ability and what went into that ride, I would put it right up there. And I mean, Ben's always had this potential. He was a really talented junior, just battled with injuries throughout his junior career.
Yeah.
Showed terrific promise on the domestic scene, and I mean, he's rewarding the faith that AG2R put into him in bucket loads. He's been incredible.
So he was an up and coming, promising young rider. He took a bit of time away from the main racing, probably not willingly, did he?
I think from what I understand, and I mean, Ben's probably the best person to ask about this, but it gets to a point where those injuries do add up, and as a professional athlete, you really start to consider those things where is it worth it? And I mean, cycling's one of those sports where unless you're one of the big names and you're racing on the pro tour, you're racing across Europe, across you're with those Grand Tour teams. There isn't a significant amount of money in it, and that can deter people in Ben's position when those injuries continuously flare up. But to Ben's credit, he's stuck through, and I mean, look at him now, second in the Tour de France. It's incredible, and I think for the sake of all Australians, I'm glad that he kept up the cycling because he's been a joy to watch.
He has been a joy to watch. Well, we weren't really too aware of him at least on the cameras of the coverage of the Tour de France. He was still a quote unquote nobody in terms of the French media. But in the last 2 days, he's been active and he's blown the race away, taken out stage 9 in the Alps. Not just any race, but in the Alps. It was a killer of a race. And so now he sits in second as a potential challenger to Tadej Pogacar, who looks like he doesn't have much other challenges at the moment.
And I tell you what the most impressive part about that ride is he demolished Quintana and Aguita. So these two Colombians who are renowned for their climbing, and Ben O'Connor put them to the sword. It was absolutely incredible. And I mean, yeah, currently sitting 2 minutes behind Pogacar. He, I think it's in his best interest to ride. And I hate saying this, but to ride for second, to defend that second position, as opposed to attacking Pog, because we saw Pogacar destroy that peloton. I mean, Carapaz tried to stick with him and lasted maybe 2-3 minutes, and then the way that Pogacar closed in on the breakaway riders, and you saw him on the left of the road and the breakaway riders on the right, literally just looking across, and they couldn't help but smile because he's making them look second rate. So I don't know whether Ben can challenge Pogacar come to when they hit Paris, but hey, if he's willing to give it a shot, all the credit to him.
Mate, good on him if you want to challenge that freak of nature. So we named Ben O'Connor in the first episode of this, previewing all of the tour. I went out on a limb. I called him the Terminator, with the O'Connor link, of course, to the Terminator, and I'm quite happy with how that nickname's turned out. I reckon he showed a good bit of Terminator there.
I tell you what, I was thinking about this today, and the Terminator's a good one. I was actually thinking maybe we go for the Ben O'Connor McGregor, because he is throwing left, right, good nights to some of those people in the top 10.
The Fighting Irish Ben O'Connor.
He's got some knockout power, let me tell you that much.
He does. So poor old Jack Haig got knocked out, and, we labelled him the next great hope of Australian cycling, contending for the GC. He's got his own team. He's got a strong team around him. Crashes out. So we've all put our chocolates out for Choco. We've all mourned that loss. I hope he's recovering all right. But could Ben O'Connor have inadvertently taken the saddle from Jack Haig and be our new next hope?
Well, I did bring this up in our first episode that I thought he could finish in the top 10. I truly believe that he can be in that top 10, if not top 5, come the finish line. Going into this tour, I probably would have ranked, in terms of ability, Haig above O'Connor. But who knows? Coming out of this tour, O'Connor is making an absolute name for himself. I mean, we heard some of the Europeans on the side of the road, Ali Ben, up, up, up. They know him on a first-name basis now. So, I mean, he's really making a name for himself, and he well and truly could be Australia's next big thing.
Wouldn't that be lovely that in the time we most needed it, in the time when Australian cycling was very, very dark, from losing Haig, losing Ewan, a couple of crashes, to having this new young stud take it back. It's the hero's journey. He's got it laid out for him. This could be a documentary. This could be a big movie we've got on our hands.
It's also, and I think we both spoke about this in episode 1, but it really is a testament to the depth of Australian cycling. Yeah. Richie Port, who came third. He finished on the podium in the Tour de France last year. He's just come off a win at the Criterium de Dauphiné. We've got Jack Haig, who is widely regarded as a promising and real up-and-coming leader of a GT team. We've got young Harry Sweeney back in the peloton. We've got Caleb Ewan, arguably the best sprinter in the world. We've got bloody Ben O'Connor making a name for himself. We've got all of these great stories, and it's just, excuse me, as an Australian cycling fan, it really is a great time to be watching.
It is. It gives you a fair bit of hope, doesn't it? So
Really does.
we're about 1 week in, just over. We're at the first rest stage. A fair bit's happened. So we've got Pogacar blowing everybody away. We've got the emergence of Ben O'Connor. We've got 5 stages by my count until the next rest day, maybe 6 if I'm off my A game. Do you think much could happen in these next few days in terms of each jersey, each competition for each jersey?
So I think stage 10 after the rest day is going to be relatively calm. I mean, the only KOM points on offer are up the Col de Cool, which is basically just 7.4 Ks at 2.8%. The rest of it is completely flat. So we won't see too much movement on the KOM jersey there, and it'll probably be down to the sprinters at the end. And I mean, when you've got a bunch of sprinters there, anything could happen. I don't think too much will change on the green jersey, and I don't think too much will change in the KOM. But I think there's real potential for the race to be blown apart in stage 11. And the reason I say that is we've got a double ascent of Mont Ventoux. So Mont Ventoux we've never had a double ascent of this before. It is arguably one of the toughest climbs in professional cycling. And to see a double ascent of that, it's it's insane. I'm trying to find the measurements. Here we go. So on one of the ascents, it's 15.7 Ks long at a gradient average of 8.8%. The first 3 Ks are about 10%. The last 2 Ks will kick up to about 9.5%. And I mean, just as a warm up, there's 2 smaller climbs before they even hit that. There's a 1.9k climb at 6% and a 2.5k climb at 5.1. So there's some real potential for damage to be done on stage 11.
Ooh, bit of carnage, bit of good carnage there.
A bit of good carnage.
Good carnage. Hey, Pogacar's been doing some good carnage, by the way, hasn't he? See, that's the good carnage we want. Someone blowing the race open.
He has blown the race open. I mean, we touched on it briefly before, but the way we saw him ride up the left-hand side of the road and leave those breakaway and catch the breakaway riders and then just leave them in his dust, geez, haven't seen that before. Or at least haven't seen it for a very long time. Just, the strength that he showed was incredible. It was a joy to watch. It was, very enjoyable.
Isn't it just? I'm liking this tour. I mean, it's different. It's different to what we've had in the past, but I'm liking how it's setting up. I hope Pogacar isn't that good. It'd be nice to see him as human.
Yeah, I think that's what I am waiting for almost, and I mean, we don't want to see him crash. I'm not saying that, but I do want to see something challenge him, whether it's an off day, whether it's a mechanical, whether it's, I don't know, he gets a puncture. I do want to see a little bit of adversity, and I want to see how he responds to that. We've seen it happen before with with him and Port getting caught in the crosswinds in last year's tour, but with such a commanding lead, I do want to see, something happen that levels the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, and I suppose the fact that he's in the yellow jersey so early could potentially add to that potential for, imploding or at least seeing some cracks in him. Because if you think back to last year, he was in the yellow jersey at the very end. He just snuck in. Roglic held it the whole time. Roglic took all the punches from all the other teams. So we haven't seen Pogacar hold on to it for a long time. Maybe it could be the undoing of him.
That was my big thing coming to this tour. Is we had never ever seen Pogacar defend the yellow jersey. As you said, he was in it for one day, not even one day. He was in it at the finish line when he won the tour of the individual time trial last year. We'd never seen him nor his team defend yellow. Whereas, as you said, Roglic and Jumbo-Visma did that for the whole tour essentially last year. So, yeah, it's certainly an interesting dynamic, and it's been interesting to see how aggressive he's still ridden with the yellow jersey. So, I mean, we've been saying we wouldn't mind seeing him crack a little bit and show that he is, human for the sake of the rest of us, because we watch it and go, I can't do that. I wish I could. But if we saw him crack as a result of these repeated attacks whilst wearing yellow, it would open the tour up for sure.
It would. And I mean, looking at the aggressiveness of those attacks, sure, he's opportunistic. He saw opportunities. He was riding better than everyone else. But Team UAE was in control of the race yesterday. They were doing some good pacemaking. You saw Ineos take over and really push the pace up a bit, and it slowed right off. And then he just attacks and blows everyone apart. He doesn't have the methodical, robotic controlling of the race that we're used to with Ineos or even Jumbo Visma with Roglic last year. The total control. UAE's hasn't seemed to quite be doing that yet. Do you think they're capable of it?
I think they're capable. I'm not sure Pogacar's capable of riding that way. I think that his strength is in that unpredictability, because last year he didn't necessarily have the same amount of support from his team in terms of rider ability that he has this year. He actually rode off other teams. So he would sit on the train of Jumbo or Ineos. He would sit on the quick step train, and he would make that his pseudo team for whichever stage it was. And in that sense, he could afford to be reactionary. He could afford to react to moves being made. Whereas now we've seen Team UAE go to the front and set the pace, and then Pogacar goes, actually, you know what? I'll do it my way anyway, and then takes off up the road. Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily that Team UAE can't control the race. I think it's just the way that Pogacar likes to ride.
Well, that's very interesting. And being a young rider as well, that discipline to play at the team way. Not saying anything of him, but of course we've all been young. We've all been those young bucks. Maybe not in the Tour de France, but I remember back in my day doing odd sport things, and it's my way. I can do it. Don't help me. Do you reckon there's a bit of greenness to him? He's got a bit of learning to do, maybe.
I would say, as opposed to greenness, I would say that there's maybe a sense of invincibility. And that comes naturally, being such a talented young rider who has already won the Tour de France. I mean, you're naturally going to have that sense of invincibility. Why wouldn't you? You've just shown you're the best in the world. But I think this comes down to experience. And Pogacar doesn't, or probably doesn't have that breadth of experience that his more seasoned companions have. So who knows? He could continue riding at this tempo and not slow down, or we could really see these aggressive attacks catch up to him in the late stages of week 2 and into week 3.
It is a long, long race. And I think in such a long race, we say there is not as much competition to Pogacar as we hoped, given the way the race is unfolded. I think there is one very big competitor to Pogacar, and that's Tait Pogacar himself.
It's a great point. It is a fantastic point, and I was thinking about this today. I think that the only person who can slow him down is himself. Is it an unnecessary risk that he takes? Is it a mechanical? Is it a flat? Is it him choosing the wrong line on a descent? And we've already seen a few riders come off and hit the deck on these descents, these long, windy, slippery descents. So it's just about him weighing up that risk v reward factor. And if he chooses to risk it on those technical sections of a descent, for example, is he prepared to live with the outcome?
Yeah. Maybe even he's been so successful riding the way he has been the last week, even last year. There's a potential that he doesn't change that, and that could cause some problems. Think of how Richard Carapaz these last few days has been trying to make up time, racing up those mountains, and getting caught by the peloton anyway. There's every chance Pogacar
Mm.
could take off once again, and maybe it doesn't go as well as we hoped. Maybe I'm just hoping for something that might not happen, but come on, crack Pogacar, jeez.
It's I mean, I keep telling myself that with these repeated efforts, eventually he does have to crack. We saw Carapaz; he put in two massive, massive attacks in back-to-back days, and one of them was so significant where he got out to, I think it was about a minute at one point, and it ended up resulting in nothing. The peloton actually
Mm.
clawed him back, and Pogacar's chase group clawed him back, and then he tried again the next day, and then he tried again the third day, and on the third day, you could tell that those efforts had caught up to him because he just didn't have any juice to give when the going got tough. And I mean, I'm sure that that's going to catch up to Pogacar soon, or maybe that's just wishful thinking. Who knows?
Look, either way, I'm still going to enjoy being on the couch peloton.
Oh, definitely, it's the best place to be. I mean, we are truly witnessing greatness. Pogacar will go down if he continues on this trajectory as one of the best cyclists we've seen of our generation. So I think it is an amazing opportunity to sit back and just enjoy it for what it is.
It takes a certain amount of awareness and mindfulness to truly understand when you're watching something amazing, historic. And that's what we have on
Mm,
our hands now, don't we? We've got this young kid who is just blowing the race apart. Sure, there were some crashes of some potential key competitors, but I think even if those crashes didn't happen, he would still be riding unbelievably. And it's just amazing to
yeah,
watch. And when you finally can like drop that Australian hat, oh come on Ben O'Connor, Pogacar, when you can just sort of put that down for a minute and think, oh geez, look at this, and watch how each of those riders are looking across at Pogacar and smiling and like they can't believe how good he is. It is just a pleasure to watch, isn't it?
absolutely. And you're right. When you take off that Australian cycling hat and you just put on your cycling hat in general, it really is, as you said, a pleasure to watch. And I think it's something we're going to look back on in a few years and go, "Holy shit! I can't believe we witnessed this." It's yeah, I think it's going to be a historic result in the end in terms of the gap between first and second.
Definitely. Look, that's making me excited. We are a rest day, so we can't get too excited because I'm gonna log off here and then want to turn on the TV and see what's going on, and there'll be nothing. So you just gotta keep it controlled. Need to sleep well. So we've got a flat stage, a mountain stage, a flat stage, a flat stage, a hilly stage, a mountain stage. That's a mixed bag.
Yep.
Do you think the GC will chop and change over the next week, or will our eyes be looking at something else? The King of the Mountains, the green jersey, the Australians, the stage wins. What's going to keep us glued to the TV
Mm.
this next week? Do you think?
It's a very, very good question. And I do think that there is potential for the GC to change. And I think that the two areas that it could potentially or change are on stage 11 with that double ascent
Mm.
of Mont Ventoux. And then I think the second opportunity is on stage 13, which is just under a 220 kilometer stage. So, I mean, it's unlikely that a breakaway gets away with a GC rider, but we could see some attacks really launched at the end of that stage with some GC hopefuls and their train, and just see
Mm.
what happens. I highly doubt that it will happen, but with about 220 k's of riding, you truly never know.
Mm.
But yeah, I do think that there is potential for major changes to happen on stage 11. So I think if you're going to watch one stage of the tour this year, make it that one.
Stage 11, the big dual mountain stage. How good. So to round out this installment of CARN the bloody bikes, rather than picking a favourite at this point, yeah, we've got Pogacar firmly cemented as the favourite. Who is your Smoky to come out and put Pogacar to the sword?
Oh, that's a good question. If there's anyone from the top 10 besides our man Ben O'Connor, I think that I'm going to say Vinegar. So he's currently sitting in fourth. He came in as a support rider to Roglic. He's 5.5 minutes behind. Now, whether or not he can truly give Pogacar a challenge, I don't know. But you look at Jumbo as they're constructed, they've got riders there that were brought in to support Roglic. So you've got Wout van Aert, you've got Sepp Kuss, you've got these amazing riders. If they ride in support of Vinegar, we don't know what could happen. He's a smoky in the truest sense, and currently sitting in fourth position. Who knows?
Who knows indeed. You took mine. I was thinking Vingegaard's looking pretty good, especially given yesterday he has a little bit of a fall, gets right back up, rides as if nothing happened. It feels like he's got a lot left in the tank.
It certainly does. And I mean, just on that, if I was a rider in the Tour this year, I would be worried if I was in, a square metre of any Jumbo rider, because it just seems that they go down at an amazing rate in this year's Tour. God. So if I was riding and I look up and I saw one of them in front of me or to my side, I would be getting out of there real quick.
I think you're right there. Poor old Tony Martin's falling at every opportunity he gets.
I think he might be the first cyclist to come out, and instead of Lycra, he's just got bandages because he is covered in it at the moment.
The human mummy, Tony Martin.
Exactly.
Right, to combat your Vingegaard, who I was going to say if you didn't, I'm thinking what we're going to... I think yesterday was telling in terms of challenging Pogacar, because Ben O'Connor gets on this break. No one really knows who he is, and UAE elects not to necessarily reel him back at all. Sure, Quintana was on that break as well, some people who could be challenging, but there was no one they thought was a big threat, right? So I think the Smoky to take out has to be one of those big threats. Now, this isn't necessarily someone no one knows, that is Wilco Kelderman.
We all know who he is, great choice.
But he's currently sitting in 7th, 5 minutes and 58, which is 40 seconds off 3rd, right? So that's not far from a podium. That's one big day out in the saddle, maybe a couple. Maybe Pogacar cracks, maybe UAE makes a tactical mistake. But Kelderman's got legs. He's a professional rider. He's got Bora Hansgrohe behind him, a good professional team who've been doing it a while. I wouldn't be against seeing the emergence of Wilco. I like a bit of Wilco.
And Bora's got some very talented riders. They're not necessarily set up to support, a GC assault, but the riders that they've got could certainly act as a pseudo GC team. So he's certainly got some talent around him, that's for sure.
You're seeing every team has chopped and changed their strategy now because of the carnage that's happened, because of the Pogacar. So let's not be surprised if Bora goes for a bit of a pivot. I don't know. It would be good.
It would be great. It would be fantastic.
And Bora Hansgrohe is probably my favourite team name as well. It's just a nice name, Bora Hansgrohe.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Oh, I love it. My other favourite is Trek Segafredo. I just love it. I miss Richie being on that team, to be honest.
I do, yeah. I'm with you on that one.
Alrighty, I reckon that'll do us. We've been talking for a good time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Matt, do you have anything going on Chewing the Fat in these next few weeks?
No. Oh well, yes. I do have an episode coming out with... I think I brought this up last time with a very good friend of mine, Chris Tormey. So we're just in the process of editing that one up in the studio, as they say. So hopefully get that out within the next week. And then beyond that, always looking for for new guests. So we're just talking with a few people at the moment to see where that takes us.
Fantastic. I'm sure you're turning all the dials and making all the big calls in those back rooms of Essendon.
Certainly trying, certainly trying.
That's it, mate. Well, thanks for coming on. This has been a blast. We'll see how these next few days go. But given it's a rest day, make sure you get a nice sleep today. Don't stay up too late.